By the way, we watched Brian Deese speak earlier. He ran the sustainability franchise at BlackRock, Jason. You know, one of the things that everybody's struggling, though, to do is to figure out which of these portfolios or ETFs and approaches make the most sense, not just for the ESG aspect, but, of course, for the returns aspect.
Right. Thank you for having me, Andrew. Yeah, I think one thing we can sort of take away just from the first couple of days of this new administration is sort of the intentionality that President Biden has sort of has shown right off the bat, from the selection of his vice president, who's a woman of color, assembling a very, very diverse cabinet. So I think if we look at what the president has already done beyond the words and the rhetoric, we see indications of a real focus on impact. So, if you look at the federal government, even with, $800, $900 billion of pensioner assets, I think it's not unreasonable to think that this administration is going to be pressing really hard to see how impactful are those dollars in the way that they are allocated. And that will, of course, Andrew, influence how the managers structure products and portfolios to reflect that impact, including the environment, and diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Jason, do you have any concern that all the re-ratings of these stocks, which you've seen over time, and by the way, Tesla is probably the greatest example of it, that perhaps we're in a bit of a mania around this? It may be a long-term trend, but that prices have actually moved too far?
Well, I think, it wouldn't be unreasonable. This isn't the first time that we're talking about impact, in the ESG space. So it wouldn't be unreasonable to have some form of skepticism. And Andrew, I will admit that some of our LP and allocating clients do approach the ESG space with some level of skepticism. And so I think that there will be a lot of eyes paying attention. But beyond the words, I think it's important to look at, what's actually happening. What are people doing? And we've seen just in our business, we're a fintech company, and we've seen in our business a dramatic increase in the allocators and investors that are looking for quantifiable evidence of performance through a social lens, and tracking things like what's the diversity, equity, inclusion of corporate boards, leadership teams at companies. So I think there's evidence that particularly post summer 2020, and candidly, I think George Floyd was an inflection point. I think that people are looking at this with a level of seriousness and measurable accountability that I think makes this a little bit of a different space.
Fair enough. We're going to keep our eyes on it, of course. Jason, we appreciate you joining us today.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.